The cultivation of American ginseng really begins years in advance before you see the plant. A farmer needs to double check and make sure that ginseng has not been grown on the property before. A ginseng plant itself might have 20 or 30 seeds every year that it drops. And Mother Nature has given the plant some capability of protecting itself from smothering itself out. The concentration levels of that deterrent are so high that when you go to plant the seed again, it might sprout, but it'll discontinue growing after the second year. So you can never plant ginseng in Marathon County, cultivated American ginseng in the same ground twice. And we're talking hundreds of years later.
Actually, the initial stage of it is when we harvest the seed from our 3- and 4-year-old gardens. We harvest the seed from the 3 and 4s, those go into the cooler and are stratified. And then the following year is when those seeds get planted. When we go ahead and do that, we basically pound all the posts in and get the gardens ready, make the beds, have the fertilizer taken care of. And from there we plant, put the straw on top, and we'll tighten some cable and maybe if we've got time put some shade cloth on. But then the following spring we go ahead, because that year you're not going to get any growth out of that seed. So what you're going to end up doing is the following year you've got to make sure that you've got the shade cloth on and ready for when the seedlings pop through.
A lot of our society has become so distant from farming that we don't realize all the small things that happen along the way to produce the food and the products that we consume every day.
Ginseng's a pretty difficult crop to grow because it's a 3- or 4-year crop. You know, if you have a year of corn and it's a bad year, at the end of the year you've kind of wiped the slate clean and begin the next year. And whereas with ginseng, if you have a bad year, you're gonna it's gonna be difficult to get things under control the following year. And it's more weather restrictive. It doesn't like rain at all. Too much moisture just causes a lot of issues, and so we're under a little bit more fire with weather when it comes to that. And you know, there's a lot more input into it. You know, obviously all the cover that we've got on here and all the hardware and posts and the manual labor that goes into it, as well as caring for it once a week. Essentially, we've got to spray it once a week to make sure that the diseases don't take control, and we lose gardens that way. So,
American ginseng needs about 75 to 85% shade. The cultivation of American ginseng is meant to mimic the woods-grown environment that the plant comes from.
The shade cloth is everything. Without the shade cloth, the plants will burn off in a very fast time. You know, a week's time, and if you start to get some weather where it's 90 degrees and the cover comes off within 24 hours, you can see they're stressed. And the shade cloth is a 78 to 82% shade cloth, which essentially is allowing 18 to 20% of light in. And actually, when you go darker, the plants have a darker color. They look a little bit better. You get a better seed crop on it. But you know, it's a toss-up of how heavy you go, and you still have to have water flow through it. And
by the 3rd year, the plant will have what we refer to as berries. Look like little coffee beans. Those are actually the seeds of the ginseng plant. That process starts in July, on your hands and knees, with your little bucket strapped to your side, and you start picking them all by hand. Once those seeds are picked, those seeds have to go through a process of stratification, reset the seed for planting the following year. But that 3rd year, once the berries are gone, what you need to do is start opening up all the gardens. So every S-hook that you hooked in spring comes back off. The tarps are opened up so the snow can land on. That'll happen for the 3rd and 4th year. With the 4th year, a decision is made if the crop needs to be harvested. Now, a ginseng plant can fall into one of many different buckets when it's harvested. The root, whether it's short or small, long, big, fat, arms and legs all over the place, that root falls into a bucket. And Paul and Will determine if that crop is ready to harvest at that time. what happens once the crop, that field has been said, we're going to dig it, the garden gets completely tore down, and we're talking the tops, the cables, the posts are pulled, and that usually starts happening in mid to late September. The beds are then scraped off, all the straw and old plants are scraped off, and what we have is modified potato diggers. Large equipment that actually takes and bounces the ginseng root to the surface, where it is picked up one of two ways. It's either bounced to the surface and goes into our trailers that pull alongside with their crates on it, or it's onto the ground and it's picked up by hands and knees. Literally crawling on the ground, putting roots in a bucket. The root, once it's harvested with the harvesters and put into crates, it's taken through a process of cooling, washing, and then drying. And it's at the point of drying where the root really becomes a commodity that Sue's ginseng can move into the worldwide markets.
There's many steps involved. My dad has over 40 years of growing experience that he learned. Nick's dad worked side by side with my dad for over 30 years, and Nick and I are still learning. Paul and Ron back in the day, they were still learning. Every growing cycle, every seasonal change, with the variation in weather, that you're seeing more volatility in weather and weather patterns, there's less predictability. And I think that's what makes this product in particular both special but also very difficult to grow unless you have significant experience or willing to take on a lot of risk.
It's a hard business. It's risky. Don't believe that's easy money. No, it's very hard money. It's a slow process. It's not a get rich quick scheme. If anyone impress you that, don't believe in that. It's a get rich very carefully and very slowly.
Some of the misconceptions, I think one of the things that always surprises people is the amount of work that goes into it, between putting the posts in and cables and planting and weeding and things like that. There's a lot of people that hear from, I didn't realize it was that much work and I didn't realize it took that long.
This is a product that requires a product and a plant that requires a long-term commitment. So if you can't make a long-term commitment to both invest in it but also brand the product, I think it's very difficult economically to make a go at this. And so this is a business that we're not in like the reality TV shows to make a quick buck. We're here for our customers, our consumers, our employees, people who have a stake in the success of this organization. And we're hopeful that our consumers understand that that's what this company has been about for the last 40 years and what it will be about for, hopefully the next 40 years.